Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 175, Wabupalooza. The episode begins with Ash and the gang just in the forest having a little lunch break when they decide to continue on their journey, but suddenly, Misty spots a guidebook on the ground, and a Wobbuffet suddenly appears, seemingly to retrieve it. As soon as they see Wobbuffet, this causes Ash and the gang to assume that Team Rocket was nearby, but then several more Wobbuffet appear immediately after, immediately disproving this since Team Rocket only had one Wobbuffet. More and more Wobbuffet continue to appear until there's like dozens and dozens of them. So Ash and the gang realize that there must be something going on. So they decide to trail the Wobbuffet when they all walk off, and they're led into the Wobbuffet village, a town full of Wobbuffet and their trainers. It was literally only Wobbuffet trainers. Ash and the gang questioned why the fuck all these trainers were so obsessed with Wobbuffet, when suddenly a man named Norio comes up to them and gives them an exposition dump, essentially explaining that, yes, this village was obsessed with Wobbuffet, it was the only Pokemon there, and everyone in the village always wore clothes relating to Wobbuffet as well, like Wobbuffet shirts and shit, especially on a day like today, which was known as Wobbuffet Festival Day, a day that was meant to celebrate every single Wobbuffet. Ash and the gang, being the curious fucks that they always were intrigued by this Wobbuffet Festival Day, so Norio offered to show them around, and they accepted. Meanwhile, Team Rocket had also arrived in the Wobbuffet village, and they were extremely hungry and exhausted, as usual. So Jessie wasn't in the mood to deal with Wobbuffet popping out of its Pokeball, so she instantly tried to recall it back, but before she could, a whole bunch of other Wobbuffet from the town appeared, followed by a lady named Lulu. She immediately congratulated Jessie on how beautiful her Wobbuffet was, and was amazed at the fact that visitors had come to the village with their own Wobbuffet, and assumed that Jessie was probably here due to the Wobbuffet Festival, and therefore, she decided to invite Team Rocket to her house so that they could talk about what they were going to do all day to celebrate their Wobbuffet. Essentially, she was so happy that a visitor liked Wobbuffet as much as everyone in town did that she just instantly invited them into their home. Team Rocket reluctantly followed, as they didn't understand why anyone would fucking like Wobbuffet at all, and questioned why this lady would. So, like, they were just so curious, they wanted to see if she had, like, mental problems or something. But their curiousness was soon turned into happiness, as soon as they arrived at the house, their hunger was immediately subsided, as Lulu offered them a whole bunch of burgers and sandwiches, which they happily gulped down. Upon getting food, Jessie and James obviously become interested in the festival, thinking that there might be more food there as well, and Jessie asks Lulu about this, and Lulu confirms that yes, in fact, there would be more food at the festival, but adds that there would also be a ton of more Wobbuffet as well, which was the most important thing about the festival. Jessie and James, not wanting to get kicked out of the town for not actually liking Wobbuffet, because that would mean that they wouldn't get any of this food, pretend to get very excited at the prospect of there being more Wobbuffet, and upon seeing their excitement, Lulu decides to put a yellow headband on Jessie and James's Wobbuffet, because that way it would stand out from the rest of the Wobbuffet more. Essentially, she didn't want Team Rocket to get sad if their Wobbuffet was left out of the festivities, so she wanted to make sure that it was extra special. Jessie and James laughed at how ridiculous Wobbuffet looked in the headband, but they tried their best to hold their laughter so they don't get caught, as not actually liking Wobbuffet. Lulu then decides to take them to the festival's main attraction, being a large-ass Wobbuffet statue in the middle of town, which was known as the festival symbol. Jessie was barely able to restrain her hatred for her Wobbuffet at this point, like she couldn't handle just even pretending to like Wobbuffet, as she called all these people crazy for their love over it. Before Lulu could register what Jessie said, though, James and Meowth quickly shut her up so their cover wouldn't be blown, explaining that what Jessie meant was that these people were crazy for their love over Wobbuffet, just like they were. Yeah, totally. Meanwhile, Team Rocket weren't the ones spying this time, but 3 men were spying, with their Pokemon Hitmonlee, Machoke, and Primeape, as they were making a plan to cause some trouble in the village, examining it from the cliffs above. Meanwhile, Ash and the gang were currently enjoying the festival after Norio had led them to an area with a whole bunch of Wobbuffet, which wasn't hard to come by because Wobbuffet were everywhere. But suddenly, a man came up and reported that a Wobbuffet had been attacked. I wonder if it was those men who were going to cause trouble. Anyways, Ash and the gang follow the man to the scene of the crime, where they spot a girl crying, claiming that it was her Wobbuffet who had been attacked, and she states that her name was Annie. Norio then catches up to Ash and the gang as well, as a second report comes in from a man named Yahichi, who claimed that 3 people attacked his Wobbuffet too. 3 people, huh? It must be the people who were going to cause trouble. But of course, upon hearing 3 people, Ash and the gang are instantly suspicious that Team Rocket were the ones behind it. What Ash and the gang didn't know, though, was that Team Rocket was not responsible, although they were planning a separate crime, which was to steal all of the food from the food stalls at the main plaza of the Wobbuffet Festival. They eventually came across something even better, though, an entire food storeroom where all the food distributed throughout the festival was held, so they immediately tried to break in. However, they then spot Ash and the gang, so immediately go to hide in a nearby bush, but it was useless, as Ash and the gang had spotted them already, despite them being in their disguises, and Ash immediately accuses them of being the ones to attack all the Wobbuffet since they were here, but Team Rocket obviously denied this, and they weren't even lying this time, and they had Lulu to vouch for them, who came running back up, and stated that Team Rocket was innocent. Ash and the gang rebuttal that there was no way that Team Rocket could be innocent, since they were literally doing an entirely separate crime by trying to break into the storeroom right now, but Lulu simply denies this, saying that they couldn't be criminals since they had a Wobbuffet, and anyone with a Wobbuffet at the Wobbuffet Festival was automatically a nice, awesome person. And accuses Ash and the gang of being bullies, saying that if Team Rocket needed comfort from these bullies that didn't even have their own Wobbuffet, then they could come to her house anytime they wanted. Just then, though, someone runs up and reports that yet another Wobbuffet had been attacked, and this leads Ash and the gang to come to the conclusion that Team Rocket were actually innocent in the case of attacking the Wobbuffet after all, as there was no way they could have done so while they were standing here. Ash and the gang reluctantly apologize to Team Rocket, because, they hated doing that shit, but they then run after the man who leads them to the Wobbuffet statue in the middle of the town, where supposedly this Wobbuffet was attacked. With Ash and the gang and Lulu gone, since Lulu had dispersed from the scene as well. Not to go worry about the Wobbuffet or anything, there was no one left to stop Team Rocket from going back to their plan of breaking into the storeroom to steal the food. Anyways, Ash and the gang and everyone else had all gathered around the Wobbuffet symbol, and were witnessing another Wobbuffet being attacked, and it got knocked 20 feet into the air. As Ash and the gang arrived, they noticed that the attack was done by the 3 people who were looking on the town earlier with their Hitmonlee, Primeape, and Machoke. The 3 men then called the Wobbuffet a weakling, and proceed to insult the Wobbuffet statue, calling it a weakling as well. Upon hearing the 3 men's voices, Norio had recognized them, and he recognized them even more when he spotted their 3 fighting-type Pokemon, stating that the 3 men had attacked the town last year during the Wobbuffet Festival, beating up the Wobbuffet as a way to train, quote-unquote, their fighting Pokemon. Also destroying the village by smashing windows and breaking down doors, claiming that was training for their fighting Pokemon as well. And I mean, technically it was helping them fight, but it didn't mean that these trainers weren't dicks. I mean, like hurting an entire Pokemon species and an entire town just to train your Pokemon, I don't know about that, man. Ash and the gang then questioned why these 3 men would come back to the town after they had already destroyed it once. Like, what was the point? But Norio reveals that the 3 men had actually been stopped before they destroyed the entire town last year because of Lulu's Wobbuffet, who used Mirror Coat and counterattacks to ward off the fighting Pokemon. And that must have pissed off the 3 men, so they came back this year for revenge. The 3 men then claimed that they came back since their Pokemon were now much stronger, and they indeed wanted revenge. They were going to beat up every single Wobbuffet in the village to prove it. Honestly, they were already cunts to begin with, destroying the town and everything, but they probably didn't hate Wobbuffet in the beginning. They probably just hated him now because of what Lulu's did, but that didn't mean it was warranted to hate the entire species. Anyways, upon hearing what the 3 men were planning to do, Norio ran off to find both Officer Jenny and Lulu, hoping that at least one of them could do something about the situation. Ash and the gang managed to distract the 3 men while Norio does this by demanding that they go the fuck away and stop harming all the Wobbuffet. Eventually, Norio managed to find both Lulu and Officer Jenny, and Team Rocket spotted the 3 of them running back towards the Wobbuffet statue as they were stealing the last of the food from the storeroom at this point, and they wondered what the fuck was going on. Anyways, as Norio, Officer Jenny, and Lulu arrived back at the statue, Ash, Misty, and Brock had challenged the 3 men to a battle to distract them further, with Brock sending out his Golbat, Misty sending out her Poliwhirl, and Ash sending out his Chikorita. The 3 men were surprised at these little kids' guts to try and come up to their fighting Pokemon, but they obliged to the battle, wanting to kick their asses and teach them a lesson, sending out their Hitmonlee, Primeape, and Machoke. The battle begins as Hitmonlee goes to use Rolling Kick against Chikorita's Vine Whip, but just then, Officer Jenny arrives with Norio and Lulu and stops the fight. She didn't just stop the fight because it was the 3 men attacking, though. No. She stopped the fight for an entirely different reason, being that battles were forbidden during the Wobbuffet Festival in honor of Wobbuffet never being able to attack first, since it only had to use counter. Explaining that this tradition had been put in place by the very founders of the Wobbuffet Festival, and they would always continue to honor it. This leads Ash and the gang to recall their Pokemon, wanting to respect the festival's rules, even though they wanted to stop the 3 men. But the 3 men, of course, didn't want to accept these rules, but they found a workaround. So they instead ordered their Pokemon to attack the Wobbuffet statue and destroy it. If they couldn't attack any real Wobbuffet, they still were going to make a mockery of it as revenge. Not being allowed to use their Pokemon to intervene, as that would count as a battle, Ash and the gang hopelessly watch as the 3 men destroy the great Wobbuffet statue. As for Team Rocket, they were also watching the statue being destroyed from the bushes, and Jessie and Meowth were extremely confused as to why the villagers were refusing to fight back to save the statue, noting how much they loved Wobbuffet. But James was like, guys, don't you see? It shows their dedication to their Wobbuffet, It means that they respect the fact that they can't attack, so they don't want to attack either. Meowth comments that this was stupid, though, and sees how even their Wobbuffet was sad about the Wobbuffet statue being destroyed. So, the trainers should be fighting back. Wobbuffet instantly agreed, jumping up like it wanted to challenge the 3 men. Jessie initially denied Meowth, James, and Wobbuffet, because, she still hated the Wobbuffet. She didn't care what the fuck happened to them. She was just blown away that the Wobbuffet lovers weren't doing anything. It didn't mean that she was going to do anything herself. But then Meowth reminded her of how well Lulu had treated them, giving them free food and shit, and declares that Jessie should let Wobbuffet help out and battle the 3 men, as thanks for what Lulu had done for them. This actually convinces Jessie, so all of Team Rocket, including Wobbuffet, decide to help out the villagers. Team Rocket were actually going to be the good guys for once? No fucking way. Meanwhile, back at the statue, Ash was dying to do something, not caring about the festival's traditions at this point, and just wanting to salvage whatever remained of the statue. So he ordered Pikachu to use Thunderbolt on the 3 men's fighting types, but Lulu stopped him, still just not wanting to break the goddamn tradition. However, Team Rocket had other plans as they dropped down a smoke bomb and make a dramatic entrance in their Meowth balloon, stating their motto, declaring that they would make the 3 men go the fuck away, no matter what. But the 3 men were not intimidated, even by Team Rocket's attempt at a smoke bomb, and refused to go away. So, Team Rocket then declared that they were going to have a Pokemon battle. Although they were initially planning to just use Wobbuffet, they realized that they should go full force. So, Jessie sent out her Arbok, and James sent out his Victory Bell, despite Jenny's warnings that battles were forbidden, with Team Rocket rebutting that some rules had to be broken. See, I guess they still broke rules, It shows that they are still criminals in some way, even though this rule needed to be fucking broken to be fair. It was stupid. Before the battle can begin, though, Victory Bell, of course, eats James. Just kidding, it actually eats Meowth this time for some reason, I don't know fucking why. But anyways, the battle then began, as Hitmonlee used Rolling Kick on Arbok, but Arbok countered by using Tackle. Machoke then used Karate Chop on Victory Bell, though Victory Bell tried to counter with Razor Leaf, but Primeape jumped in front of Machoke to protect it and knocked the Razor Leaves away. During all this, Ash and the gang were just blown the fuck away at the fact that Team Rocket was actually doing a good deed for once, and the battle continued as Arbok tried to use Wrap, but it got hit by Hitmonlee's high jump kick first, and then Machoke's seismic toss knocked out Victor Bell. With Arbok also knocked out by the high jump kick, the three men laugh and declare that they had fucking won, yeah! But Jesse's like, no you haven't, we still have our Wobbuffet, baby. We should have just sent out Wobbuffet from the beginning. No, just kidding, she doesn't go that far, but she does send out Wobbuffet. Obviously, with the three men already heavily disrespecting Wobbuffet and finding them weak as fuck, they obviously think that Wobbuffet is weak as fuck, especially with its yellow headband, and they proceed to laugh at it uncontrollably in its face. Jessie suggests taking the headband off, so maybe Wobbuffet could look more intimidating, but before she can do this, Hitmonlee then goes in for a jump kick, but Wobbuffet uses counter to send the attack right back at it. Machoke then uses seismic toss, but Wobbuffet does the same thing, and does the same thing for a third time when Primeape tries to hit with Fury Swipes. Damn, counter was overpowered. In an attempt to combat the counter, the three men tried to have all their Pokemon attack at once, with Hitmonlee using high jump kick, Machoke using karate chop, and Primeape using Fury Swipes, hoping that all the attacks at the same time meant that Wobbuffet couldn't deflect them all, but it was able to, and the counter was so powerful that it caused all the three Pokemon to blast off just like Team Rocket would, and with no Pokemon to defend themselves with, the three men scatter away like cowards. Damn. The villagers then all thank Team Rocket for their assistance in dealing with the three men. But Officer Jenny butts in, stating that although Team Rocket did help, they still broke the rules by fighting, so therefore they had to leave the village. Ash and the gang were still in disbelief that Team Rocket had actually done something good for once, so they thought they were going to try and pull a last-minute move to steal all the Wobbuffet or something, but no, they didn't. They just decided to go into their Meowth balloon and leave peacefully. Just kidding, they didn't steal the Wobbuffet, but they still had all the food that they stole from the storeroom, and it was attached to their balloon, and they were flying away with it. Ash and the gang just sigh in annoyance as they chase after the balloon with Officer Jenny, and Misty sends out her Staryu to use Tackle, which pokes a hole in the balloon, sending it pummeling down to the ground. Team Rocket don't panic though, as they then send out Arbok and Weezing yet again, and claim that Ash and the gang couldn't battle them since it was against the village rules, so if they battled, they'd be kicked out. Officer Jenny then butts in though, and says that Ash and the gang could battle Team Rocket all they wanted, since Team Rocket had now flown their balloon out of the village, and it had crash-landed just outside the village limits, so Team Rocket didn't count as village members, so they could be fucking annihilated. So Ash decided to use his Pikachu and have him use Thunderbolt, sending Team Rocket blasting off. Later that day, during the festival that was still going on, the Wobbuffet statue was quickly fixed. Yay! Norio and Lulu then thanked Ash and the gang for all their help, and insisted that they stay for the rest of the festival, saying that there was going to be a whole bunch of dances and even fireworks, along with plenty of food. Ash and the gang agree to join, and they all watch the fireworks before they continue on their journey. The episode then ends with one last scene from Team Rocket, who had blasted off onto a platform near the village, and James and Meowth were complaining about how they had lost out on all of the food, which had been reclaimed by the villagers, and they were also just sad about the fact that they lost the villagers' respect as well, stating that they could have actually had some friends aside from each other for once. But Jessie rebutted that they didn't need any more goddamn friends because they had Wobbuffet. Was she sarcastic or not? Who knows? I'd wager she was sarcastic.